Today, we're diving into the world of a truly remarkable survivor. It's a family of bacteria that's pretty much everywhere, all around us and even inside of us. And most of the time, it causes no trouble at all. But give it just the right opportunity, and it can become one of nature's sneakiest and most dangerous foes. So how does that work? Let's get into it. All right, let me start by asking you a question. What if I told you there's a type of bacteria that can cause truly terrifying diseases like tetanus and botulism? Yet, it's a common resident inside the guts of perfectly healthy adults and even brand new babies. How is that even possible? It sounds like a paradox, right? Well, the answer is a fascinating family of bacteria called Clostridia. And let me tell you, understanding them is a masterclass in one simple idea. When it comes to the microscopic world, context is everything. What's pretty wild is just how common Clostridia are. I mean, they are everywhere. They're a totally natural part of the ecosystem. You'll find them in the soil, on decaying plants, in animals. And yes, they're often just hanging out in our large intestine, living alongside trillions of other microbes. Most of the time, they're completely harmless neighbors. Okay, so if they're everywhere and usually harmless, what's the catch? What makes them so dangerous? Well, it all comes down to this brilliant ancient survival strategy, a kind of secret weapon that lets them endure almost anything you can throw at them. So first, you gotta know this key fact. Clostridia are anaerobes. Now that's a fancy word, but all it means is they thrive in places without oxygen. In fact, oxygen can be toxic to them. And this is a huge clue because it helps explain why they can do so well deep inside our bodies or in, say, a sealed can of food, places where other bacteria just can't survive. And that brings us to their superpower. Seriously, this is like something out of science fiction. The spore. When conditions get rough, too much oxygen, not enough food, too dry, the bacterium doesn't just give up and die. No way. It transforms itself into a spore. The best way to think of it is like a microscopic survival pod or a little armored seed. It's basically a dormant version of itself, built to just wait out the storm. So here's how the whole life cycle plays out. That little armored spore can survive for years, just sitting there in the soil or on a countertop. But then it finds a perfect new home, a place that's warm, moist, and has no oxygen, like a deep puncture wound. Suddenly, it's go time. The spore germinates. It wakes up, sheds its armor, becomes an active bacterium again, and starts multiplying like crazy. And that is when the real trouble begins, because as they multiply, they start producing toxins. Now, this is maybe the single most important thing to get. It's not actually the bacteria themselves that make us so sick. It's the incredibly potent toxins they pump out. These things are like their chemical weapons, and each one is designed to attack a different part of the body, causing a whole range of very different diseases. Now, while there are a whole bunch of species of Clostridia, health experts really focus on 4 main troublemakers that cause the most common diseases in humans. So let's meet this rogues gallery. First up, Clostridium botulinum. Its spores can wake up in improperly canned food, releasing the infamous toxin that causes botulism. Next, we have Clostridium tetani, the one you find in soil. It gets in through a wound to cause tetanus, which is why you get a tetanus shot. Then there's Clostridium perfringens, a real double threat. It can cause food poisoning, but it's also responsible for a devastating wound infection called gas gangrene. And finally, there's Clostridioides difficile, or C. diff. This one's a bit different. It's already in our gut, but it can overgrow when antibiotics wipe out its competition, leading to severe diarrhea and colitis. So we've seen how they cause disease, but what happens when things go really, really wrong? Under the worst circumstances, these infections can become incredibly serious and life-threatening. Clostridia, especially C. perfringens, can cause severe infections deep inside the body, in the abdomen or pelvis. This might happen after surgeries or procedures that aren't perfectly sterile, leading to infections in organs like the gallbladder or the uterus. And these aren't minor issues. They are extremely serious and, can be fatal. One of the most terrifying outcomes is something called gas gangrene. As the bacteria multiply in a wound, they release gas that literally gets trapped in the surrounding tissue. You can see bubbles and blisters forming under the skin. This process just destroys tissue at an alarming rate. It is an absolute lights and sirens medical emergency. And the ultimate escalation for any of these infections? Sepsis. This is when the bacteria get into the bloodstream and the body's immune system just panics. It launches this massive, widespread, runaway reaction that spirals out of control. It's the body's own defenses turning against itself, causing organ failure, and it can be fatal really, really fast.
Okay, I know that was all pretty intense, so let's zoom back out. Because if there's one thing you take away from all this, it should be this. For Clostridia, context is absolutely everything.
Just think about the difference. On one hand, you've got Clostridia living in balance in our gut, totally harmless. Or it's a dormant spore in your garden, doing absolutely nothing. But then, on the other hand, it becomes harmful. The exact same organism overgrows because antibiotics threw things out of whack. Or that same spore germinates in a deep wound. Or it multiplies in a sealed can of food. You see? It's the same bacterium, just a different environment that turns it from a harmless neighbor into a serious threat. And that kind of leaves us with the final thought. This organism's strategy for survival, just waiting patiently for the perfect, terrible opportunity. It's ancient and it's incredibly effective. So what does that teach us about our own health? Well, maybe it shows that being healthy isn't just about the absence of germs, but about maintaining the right balance. It's about creating an environment where even the most dangerous survivors simply have no reason to attack.